There comes a moment when the universe stops whispering, when it no longer taps gently on the door of conscience, but kicks it wide open. For too long, wrongdoers have mistaken delay for escape, thinking that if consequences don't come soon, they won't come at all. But time is not forgetful, it's patient. And patience is not weakness, it is precision. Now the curtain is rising on a truth long ignored. This time, karma won't be subtle. It won't hint, it won't nudge. It will arrive fully awake, fully armed, and absolutely unapologetic. The whisper wasn't enough. There was a time when karma spoke gently. It arrived like a feather in the wind, soft, delayed, almost ignorable. A missed opportunity here, a lost friendship there. It gave chances. It offered time. It waited. Because karma, unlike vengeance, does not act out of rage. It acts with purpose. It studies, it remembers, and it gives people the space to correct their path. But too many mistook its silence for surrender. Too many confused its patience with permission. And now, the clock has run out. You see, the first warnings were never loud. They came in forms easy to dismiss. A quiet unease in the presence of someone betrayed. A strange twist of fate that took something dear and replaced it with emptiness. A missed phone call. A silent room. Karma sent signals. But they were soft, almost polite, as if offering one last invitation to reflect, to make things right. But what happened? The invitations were ignored. The wrongdoers grew bolder, the manipulations deeper, and the wounds they caused, those didn't just heal, they hardened. They turned into scars with voices of their own. Karma doesn't forget. It doesn't lose track. It doesn't misplace receipts. It remembers the small details others think are lost in the fog of time. The promises broken behind closed doors. The masks worn so tightly they almost became real. The lies dressed in charm. All of it has been recorded. Not with ink, but with energy. And that energy, no matter how deeply buried, demands balance. There is only so long you can walk under borrowed light before the sun sets and reveals what was always lurking in the shadows. The whisper wasn't enough. And now karma speaks louder, not with anger, but with inevitability. It's in the faces people can't escape, in the opportunities that slip just out of reach. It's in the heavy quiet at night, when all the distractions fade and the mind replays the truth, unfiltered. Karma doesn't show up wearing a crown or waving a sword. No, it shows up in the ordinary, through a door left open, through a truth finally spoken, through a reflection that no longer flatters. And when it comes, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't knock. It enters. There's a shift now, undeniable and irreversible. The air feels different because the balance has begun to return. Those who moved through the world taking more than they gave, who cloaked their harm in politeness or pity, are beginning to feel what they once thought they were immune to: accountability. Not the kind delivered by people, but the kind orchestrated by life itself. The kind that doesn't need a courtroom or a confession or a confrontation, just time. And that time has arrived. The harvest of intentions. Every action is a seed. Every word, every choice, every moment of truth avoided or embraced. It all gets planted somewhere. And while people often focus on what's visible, karma roots itself in the invisible, the intention behind the act. Not just what you did, but why you did it. Not just what you said, but what you meant when you said it. This is the ground where karma grows, and it never forgets the soil it came from. The mistake people often make is thinking they've fooled the world. They learn how to perform kindness without feeling it. They master the language of empathy while quietly feeding their own ego. They disguise control as care, betrayal as necessity, cruelty as honesty. And for a time, it works. They move undetected, applauded even. They manipulate situations so masterfully that the very people they harm are made to feel guilty for bleeding. But there is a limit. There is always a limit. Because karma doesn't watch the performance, it listens backstage. It hears the tone behind the smile. It sees the hand pulling the strings. There are those who believe they've escaped the consequences of their actions simply because the sky didn't fall. But silence is not forgiveness. Delay is not amnesty. Karma works in cycles, not impulses. What you bury today will bloom tomorrow, and the bloom doesn't care how much time has passed. Some of the most devastating harvests begin with seeds that were planted in arrogance years ago. The reckoning doesn't always come fast, but it comes right, with precision, with weight, with truth sharpened like a blade. This is the season where the ground starts giving back what it was fed. If the seeds were lies, the harvest will be isolation. If the seeds were manipulation, the harvest will be exposure. If the seeds were cruelty hidden behind civility, the harvest will be a reputation unmasked. And it will all happen in ways no one can stop. Because this isn't a punishment handed down by someone seeking revenge. It's a mirror held up by life itself, a mirror that shows what was once hidden, and forces even the most practiced liars to face it. People forget that energy is never wasted. The kindness someone offered in silence, the loyalty they gave without recognition, the patience they showed despite being tested, all of it was also a seed. And those seeds too are sprouting now. The ones who walked away without revenge are being repaid with peace. The ones who chose growth over retaliation are being rewarded with strength. This is the dual harvest, where both the righteous and the deceitful meet the outcome of their own making, not judged, not sentenced, just mirrored, just met with what they gave. This time, no one escapes the yield. Because intention is the currency of the soul, and the soul, no matter how far it's been dragged through the mud, never stops keeping score. The quiet ones, remember, they were the ones you overlooked. The ones who didn't fight back with noise, who didn't plead or shout or point fingers. They walked away not because they were defeated, but because they understood something most people never do. Some storms don't require thunder to change the landscape. They chose silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because they knew their dignity was worth more than winning an argument. And yet, every silence held memory. Every quiet departure was not an act of forgetting, it was an act of preservation. The quiet ones remember everything, not out of bitterness but out of clarity. They remember who listened and who didn't, who stayed neutral in moments that required courage, who offered comfort and who weaponized kindness. And while the world kept turning, they didn't spend their days plotting revenge or rehearsing confrontations. They rebuilt, they reflected, they grew deeper roots. You may not have noticed, but the silence was never empty. It was full of observation, full of understanding, full of things they chose not to say. Not because they were powerless, but because they refused to lower their soul to match the chaos. For a long time they were underestimated. Their patience was mistaken for permission, their empathy for weakness. People assumed that because they didn't retaliate, they must not have been hurt. But pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just waits. It waits in the background while the world praises the wrong people. It waits while the liar is celebrated, while the selfish are promoted, while the faithful are forgotten. But the truth has gravity, and what goes unspoken does not disappear. It gathers weight, it sharpens, it prepares. Now, something has shifted. The quiet ones are no longer hiding in the wings. They are rising, not with vengeance, but with presence. They speak not to convince, but to declare, not to attack, but to reveal. And when they speak, it's not volume that makes people listen. It's the power behind their calm, the strength in their restraint. They do not come back to reopen wounds. They come back as reminders of what was never properly seen. Their voice is not a weapon, it is a mirror, and those who once dismissed them can no longer look away. You see, the quiet ones are dangerous, not because they seek destruction, but because they carry truth. And truth, when carried with grace, dismantles falsehood without lifting a hand. They are no longer waiting for apologies or validation. They are not returning for acknowledgement. They've built their peace from the ground up, but that doesn't mean they forgot. It means they finally understand that remembering isn't the same as holding on. It's knowing, it's clarity, it's the stillness that comes when you no longer need justice to feel whole. The world is learning that those who walked away with dignity were not the ones who lost. They were the ones who saw what others couldn't see and left before it broke them. The mask is slipping. There's only so long a mask can hold its shape. Under pressure, under time, under truth, it begins to crack. And when it does, what's underneath is no longer something that can be hidden behind charm or convenience. At first it's subtle, a hesitation in the voice, a flicker in the eyes, a story told twice, but differently each time. The illusion begins to lose its rhythm. What once seemed effortless starts to look rehearsed, and those who were once easily deceived start to notice details they had been conditioned to overlook. People who build their lives on deception don't fear the truth. They fear exposure. They fear that the version of themselves they sold to the world will no longer be accepted when the curtain drops. That the praise, the admiration, the carefully constructed identity will collapse under the weight of contradiction. And now it's happening. Slowly. Like a spotlight shifting just enough to reveal the edges of the stage, those who were once convinced by the performance are now sensing the presence of something off. Something not quite right. Something they can't unsee. There is an elegance to truth. It doesn't need to prove itself, it just arrives. And once it does, it doesn't leave. It stays in the room, patient and silent, while the lies unravel on their own. The mask begins to slip, not because someone tore it off, but because the wearer can no longer hold it up. Keeping up the act becomes exhausting. The energy it takes to maintain a false image starts draining their ability to control perception. They speak more, but say less. They smile, but the eyes don't follow. And the silence around them grows louder with suspicion. The people they once fooled are different now, wiser, sharper. They've learned not to trust every performance, not to applaud every act. They've begun to recognize that real integrity doesn't need a spotlight, that those who seek constant validation often fear being truly seen. And one by one, the false layers begin to fall. Not through confrontation, but through observation. The same charm that once drew people in now raises questions. The same confidence now looks more like deflection. And what's left is not threatening, it's hollow. This moment, The slipping of the mask is not just a reckoning for the deceiver, it's a revelation for everyone else, a test of discernment, a chance to choose clarity over comfort. People start to realize they were never crazy, that their instincts weren't wrong, that the inconsistencies they felt, the unease they buried, had roots. And once that realization lands, there is no going back to blind trust. Respect must be earned again, if it ever can be. Truth doesn't knock down doors, it waits. And when it steps forward, it doesn't scream, it simply reveals. And what's being revealed now is undeniable. The performance has run too long. The audience has changed. The eyes watching now are no longer filled with admiration. They are filled with understanding. This time, it's personal, but not yours to control. There was a time when you believed you held the reins, that you could choreograph outcomes, spin narratives, shape how the story ended, simply because you had the louder voice or the better disguise. You convinced yourself that consequences were for others, that fallout could be dodged with a well-timed apology or a clever justification. Control became your comfort. You didn't just manipulate situations, you manipulated expectations. You learned how to steer attention, how to stay one step ahead, how to keep your hands clean while others carried the weight of your decisions. But something has shifted. The story is no longer in your hands. Because now, what's unfolding isn't about who speaks louder or who's more persuasive. This isn't a battle of opinions. This is life responding. This is balance returning. This is karma stepping in, not as a punishment, but as a correction. And the most unsettling part? You don't get to script this part. You don't get to decide who knows what, when it happens, or how it plays out. You don't get to rearrange the pieces. This time, the narrative is writing itself, and it's not waiting for your approval. You might feel it already, that slow, creeping loss of control, the moments where things don't go according to plan, not because of someone's interference, but because life itself seems to be pushing back. The timing feels different now. The outcome's less predictable. The space you once dominated is less welcoming. Conversations don't land the way they used to. People don't respond with the same blind loyalty, and that sense of command you once relied on, it's slipping. Because the truth is, karma isn't chaotic. It's personal. It doesn't operate on the terms of ego. It responds to essence. To choices made when no one was watching, to intentions cloaked in politeness, to actions taken in moments that felt insignificant at the time. It doesn't rush. It arrives exactly when the lessons are ready to be learned. And when it comes, it doesn't just affect circumstances. It changes perception. It reshapes how people see you, how they remember you, how they respond to the energy you bring into a room. And you'll want to fix it, to spin it, to regain control. You'll reach for the same tactics that once worked: distraction, charm, denial. But something's different now. The responses aren't sticking. The masks aren't sealing. The audience has shifted. The truth you avoided has outgrown your reach, and it's no longer something you can manage. It's something you must face. What you're feeling isn't revenge. It's realignment, not engineered by someone's bitterness, but by something much older, much quieter, and far more exact. It's the return of accountability, not as a punishment, but as an echo, a reflection of choices made, paths taken, voices silenced. And now, all of it is coming back, not in anger, in precision, in clarity, in timing you can't interrupt.